The show starts as two trendy wanting black men in their fancy undergarments square measure being sold off at an auction. They are enchained by their necks, and it seems as if the place may be a mart. Following this, the flick goes back to a flashback wherever it all started. It revolves around two alienated half-brothers Regis and Joel Grosdesov from the archipelago, who lead utterly totally different lives. Joel may be a monoracial black person recent out of jail when serving time for stealing a previous woman's purse. Currently, he lives along with his mother and his 9-year-old female offspring. He's serially at leisure and blames racism for all his woes, especially his joblessness. However, he has never seriously tried to seek out work. On the opposite hand, Regis may be a racial man. He's married to a woman and features a 9-year-old female offspring with her. He lives in an affluent city and is well integrated into the class society. Regis is utilized at the native government building and works as an assistant to the civil authority. One day, Regis receives a decision from his uncle, informing him that his father is dying, and it's the previous man's final want to fulfill all his youngsters. However, Regis pays no relation to his weary father, as he wasn't around once Regis was a toddler. He then takes to own dinner along with his family, however his crazy spouse threatens to induce set with other men if he doesn't pay his father one last visit. Left with no alternative, he reluctantly agrees. The next day, Regis takes a flight to his town, where his father resides. At the landing field, he runs into Joel. World Health Organization has conjointly returned to envision their father. The brothers, World Health Organization, are out of contact for over a decade, place their variations aside and rent a taxi along. They catch up within the taxi on the thanks to their father's home. Regis tells Joel everything concerning his no-hit life, whereas the latter lies to hide up his failures out of embarrassment. Upon reaching their father's home, they are introduced to their aunt and several other 0.5 sisters. Seems that their dada ventured throughout the planet and had relations with unnumbered ladies. This explains why Joel and Regis have totally different skin colors. The previous man's eyes illuminate once he sees his solely two sons before him. Before dying, he tells Regis and Joel that they'll inherit a great treasure. This excites the brothers and they thirstily wait to listen to concerning the treasure. However, to their dismay, all they receive as inheritance may be a document of freeing of their ancestors. This document was manual over to a number of slaves by their homeowners for a few extraordinary work or act. Apparently, Regis and Joel's ancestors were granted freedom long before slavery was de jure abolished within the archipelago. However, not involved concerning the symbolic worth of this piece of paper, they scoff at the inheritance. They then scoffingly tear the paper up underneath the unfavorable eye of their late father's sister. As expected, this enrages the previous girl, thus she decides to show the brats a lesson. She casts a voodoo spell on them and sends them back to the 17th century, wherever slavery continues to be rife. In the next scene, once Regis and Joel wake up, they notice themselves stripped all the way down to their designer undergarment in an open field. As the two marvel concerning what happened, a few of terrified black folks run past them. Just then, two slave hunters conjointly arrive and capture the Grosdesov brothers. They are then taken to a slave market and sold to Monsieur Jourdain, a property owner. Jourdain entrusts Joel to the farms, wherever he can work underneath the care of Henry, a brutal and deeply racist foreman, whereas Regis is shipped to the kitchens of the residents. Soon, the half-brothers discover that they need really time travel to 1780, once slavery continues to be an issue. The next day, the slaves square measure forced to pay attention to a priest. World Health Organization reads them a faux Bible concerning how black folks ought to conform the whites. However, since the Grosdesov brothers square measure the only ones besides the whites World Health Organization will scan, they refuse to believe the contents. Regis even surprises the priest by reading him a line from the book. Later within the day, Joel shows up late to the sector, and gets hit by Henry. Bored to death with Henry's torture and behavior, Joel makes a last hit to flee the farm, however winds up striking his head on a pole, and knock himself out. Thanks to his actions, he's scourged before of everybody. That night, Regis is named to Monsieur Jourdain's workplace wherever his ability to read is acknowledged. Jourdain praises him for being a smart slave, and offers him the privilege to management the opposite slaves with Henry. In the meantime, Joel is obtaining his wounds treated by a feminine slave, Rosalie. It's been solely 5 minutes since they've met, however Joel has already started liking her. At an opportune moment, he leans in for a kiss, solely to induce turned down. Rosalie then reveals that she is loving with a fellow slave named Isidore, abundant to Joel's disappointment. The next day, Regis carries out his new duty, and starts ordering and commanding different slaves to do their work. Joel is aghast to envision his brother acting just like the whites, and criticizes him for being egotistical. However, Regis may care less, and he continues to be loyal to his new masters, and reports his work throughout the day to Monsieur Jourdain. Eventually, everyone within the white menage finds out concerning Regis's ability to scan, and starts mocking him. They conjointly joke concerning whether or not he will play the piano. To everyone's surprise, Regis plays the piano superbly. However, this results in him obtaining whipped severely by the whites. Finally bored to death, Regis desires out, and therefore the next morning, the two brothers hightail it the plantation by on the QT hopping within the carriage of a Judaic man named Patriarch. After they reach his place, Isaac approaches them and divulges that he knew concerning their presence right along. The brothers beg him for mercy, however to their surprise, Patriarch provides them with nice welcome and care, as Jews also are a victim of discrimination. Soon, Monsieur Jourdain's henchmen gain Isaac's home in search of the two brothers. However, before they may get caught, Regis and Joel bid Patriarch farewell, and hightail it through the rear door. They create their thanks to the bounds wherever they take an abandoned boat, and kicked off into the ocean. Comically, they cross ways with a ship that is used to move slaves to auctions, and square measure caught and unfree. At last, the Grosser brothers find yourself within the same mart, wherever they are bought by Jourdain's henchmen. Fortunately, on the method back to the plantation, the brothers square measure saved by an African tribe. World Health Organization call themselves the Maroons. Here, it's discovered that the folks of the tribe were all slaves once before they fled from their homeowners. The two square measure welcome into the tribe, and that they begin to chant with the tribe leader. However, Regis, World Health Organization himself is married to a white lady, refuses to chant once the Maroons state killing the whites. This enrages the tribe, and that they quickly turn on the brothers. However, luckily, Regis and Joel manage to run the tribe, and reach safety. The next day, the two notice themselves in an unknown place wherever they see their auntie, who cast a spell on them. The brothers shortly notice that it had been she. World Health Organization was liable for causing them back in time. They plead along with her to get rid of the spell, and mention that they'll do something for it. Initially, the previous girl refuses, however once the brothers keep pleading, she offers them a touch. Pleading, she tells them that the sole method for them to induce back to the current is to achieve the plantation once more, and reunite their ancestors, Isidore and Rosalie. She conjointly tells them to rectify the error, while not elaborating to any extent further. Before disappearing, the lady leaves behind her special pipe, and instructs the brothers to smoke it once they need with success completed their mission. As the two square measure group action ways that to tackle the state of affairs, Joel suddenly remembers seeing what seemed like Isidore having oral intercourse with another man. He has conjointly recorded a video of the incident on his phone, and shows it to Regis. The two brothers then become convinced that Isidora is homosexual, and that they erroneously believe that this is that error that they are presupposed to fix. In the next scene, Joel and Regis come back to the plantation. They fight to barter with Monsieur Jourdain on their penalization, however it doesn't compute for them. Instead, they get branded with the sigil of the plantation. They then return to their huts, and start to arrange their course of action. Meanwhile within the mansion, the whites square measure celebrating the marriage party of Monsieur Jourdain's female offspring. Taking this because the good distraction, the brothers organize a celebration of their own for the slaves. They on the QT steal a barrel of rum from the still to intoxicate and to activate the romance between Isidora and Rosalie. However, their arrange hits a roadblock when Regis spots Joel creating out with Rosalie thanks to his infatuation along with her. Afterwards, the two brothers improvise and physically facilitate the couple have intercourse as they are asleep. Once this is often done, they are convinced that their mission there's accomplished. Basic cognitive process that they can come back whenever they like, the brothers arrange to take revenge on the whites. They make their method into the mansion, armed, wherever they abase everybody. Joel kisses the female offspring of Monsieur Jourdain, whereas Regis starts damaging article of furniture, and even slaps a man. All of a sudden, Henry barges within the space with a gun, and threatens the brothers. Still, Regis and Joel show no signs of concern, and proceed to use the pipe. Sadly, after they smoke it, nothing happens. It seems as if the wizard pipe given by the married woman was replaced with a normal one. As a result of their deeds, they square measure they are bolted in a cage, and are condemned to execution ensuing day. That night, the brothers get emotional, and begin considering their life selections. Regis talks concerning his failing wedding, whereas Joel confesses that he's bust and unemployed. After a number of hours, because the brothers square measures still sympathizing with one another, Henry arrives and takes them bent on the sector wherever they are presupposed to be hanged. However, right before the execution, Monsieur Jourdain's son, Victor, runs off into the forest, as he cannot bear looking the sight. Rosalind chases when him, and shortly finds out that he has fallen into the near watercourse. All members of the family panic, and run to the scene. However, Isidora takes advantage of the uproar, and saves the brothers, knock out Henry in the method. He then orders them to run for his or her lives, to that they oblige. As the brothers hightail it, they are available across Victor, UN agency is being swept back by the stream. While not a second thought, the two jump into the damaging watercourse. However, to Regis' surprise, Joel cannot swim. This makes his task even harder, however somehow, he manages to save lots of each his brother and Victor. Grateful to the brothers for saving his son's life, adult male Jourdain sets them free. The half-brothers are awarded with the terribly same document of freeing that they were provided with by their late father. However, rather than accept the liberty, and therefore the award, they request adult male Jourdain to free Isidora and Rosalie, and gift them with a document. The adult male finds the request terribly strange, however all the same, he obliges. In this method, the brothers have managed to free Isidora and Rosalie, however they still don't recognize where to search out the magic pipe, which can facilitate them come back to the fashionable time. With days passing by, they slowly begin to simply accept that they'll never come back to their time. One day, Isidora and Rosalind greet the brothers cheerio, and leave the plantation with the papers. Because the two watch them leave from afar, Henry approaches them and orders them to induce back to figure. He then removes his pipe and starts smoking. Once he tries to chagrin the brothers by processing smoke in their faces, they suddenly disappear, much to the feeling of Henry. This means that Henry was the one UN agency scarfed the pipe from them. In the next scene, the brothers come back to the gift, wherever they see their kinswoman beside them. When they see her holding the initial document in her hand, Regis and Joel become eased. Several months travel. Joel finds a daily job on a construction website wherever he still complains about his remuneration, which is to try to with him being black. Meanwhile, Regis returns to his work at the government building. One day, as he's close to leave his workplace, he greets the politician. UN agency passes a racist joke. Regis, being not the person he once was, decides to face up to the mayors before storming off. The scene then cuts to Regis and his adult female in conjunction with Joel and his mother chatting in Regis's lounge. The two agree that the journey they'd brought them closer as a family. However, associate degree argument between their individual daughters results in the tearing of the document of freeing. The motion picture ends as Regis and Joel run towards their daughters in panic, and Joel